Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Or as always, massive warm welcome to anyone that might be listening to us here on Maverick Mind for the very first time. Great to connect with you. I hope you all had a great week. This week has been one of those weeks for me where sometimes, I think often we want to feel easeful and flowy within our creative expression, within what we're creating in the world, and within maybe our business expression of that, or just putting it out into the world. But sometimes we need kind of like a shock attack to bring like big vision ideas that might be kind of sleeping inside you awake, and that is sometimes not comfortable, but sometimes needed. And that's really what I feel like's happened to me this week. I've got to be honest. It's been one of those weeks where I had a bit of one of those rug pulled from under me moments. But from that came an idea that I think has been kind of living inside me for a very long time, but I hadn't quite put the pieces together in a very clear way yet. And it took that kind of shock moment to bring those pieces together, and now I'm so excited to kind of slowly start to put this thing together and bring it to you. And I think that it'll be one of those offerings or one of those things that I think I'm really excited to create, and I think it will really help so many of you. So I'm really excited to put that together, but that's another story for another day, and I'll tell you about it along the way. I'll keep you informed, of course, but something exciting is coming, let's just say that. So this week on the show, we are talking all things starting a sustainable fashion business. I'm joined by the very lovely Sara Smith. She is the founder of Revivre, which is a sustainable swimwear line. She is based in Scotland, but she's actually Australian, and she's a mother, she's a small business owner, and we talk all things sustainability. We talk starting a fashion label, which can feel like the biggest minefield ever, I should know, right? We talk about building a mission-led business and how that sometimes forces you into stepping into the role of a leader. And actually, when we're creatives, as visionary human beings, we're bringing things into life, whether that is, spreading a big message like sustainability, or whether that's just creating a vibe and an aesthetic with your work, we're still leading a charge in some way. And sometimes that can really take a lot of identity work to step into, because most of us don't identify as a leader at all. Most of us don't identify as that big voice. We're quite introverted most of the time. So as I say, we talk a little bit about that, the ins and outs of fashion label, or starting a business on your own anyway, and a little bit about entrepreneurship and motherhood. So there's a lot of juice within this, whether you're a fashion person or whether you're not. I'm sure you'll get loads out of this. So without any further ado, let's dive in, shall we? Sara Smith, a massive welcome to Maverick Mind. Sarah, a massive warm welcome to Maverick Mind, the podcast. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation, and a big warm welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ellie. Lovely to be here.
Such a pleasure. To give the audience maybe like a little bit of a backstory about who you are and kind of how you came to be this fabulous swimwear designer. maybe that like paint a little bit of a picture of where you're from. Were you really interested in fashion growing up, or were you just a kind of little creative soul?
Sure. So I live in Scotland. You can hear with my accent, I'm not Scottish. I'm first generation Australian, so I come from a family of Scots. So I spent my childhood growing up by the beach, sandy, salty, barefoot, tanned was just life. And I'm very, very grateful for my childhood. But I've always had this love for the beach, the outdoors, that organic sense of living outside, and that was with me a lot in my childhood and in my teens as well. I remember I got an art scholarship when I was going into high school, that I didn't take, but I was so interested in art. It was my favorite subject. I love to be creative. I also love traveling. So fast forward to 2007, I moved to the UK, and I basically just got quite involved in the corporate lifestyle and started working my way up in a 9 to 5, and forgot about my creative side. And it wasn't until COVID, and I actually, the week that we went into lockdown, so it was March 2020, I had my first child, Sienna. And so my maternity leave essentially turned into a very long maternity leave because I was furloughed as well. So I had all this time. I think I was off for about 18 months. And I had all this time. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't see anyone. So I was out walking with my daughter every day in the pram and just getting so much exercise and sunshine and fresh air. It was wonderful. I know that there was a lot of struggles in the pandemic, but there was definitely a silver lining for me to be able to spend so much time with myself.
Mm.
And it was in that time that I sort of said, right, if I was to start again right now, what does my perfect life look like? And I scaled it back and I thought, oh, what do I love? I love art. I love travel. I love creating things. I also love the female form very much
Mm.
so. And I love the the way that you can flatter the female body without being male gaze, if that makes sense. I really believe in empowering women, and I was walking with a friend, and I can't remember what I was talking about. I think I was complaining about something, some bugbear in my life. I can't remember what it was, and she said, "You need a project," and I thought, okay, I need a project. And it was around the same time where I was thinking, what would my dream life look like? And it was in that moment, I think I sat down with my mindset and manifestation coach at the time, and we talked about it. And what came into fruition was this this company that's called Revive, and Revive means in French, it means to live again.
Mm.
And it's essentially like a revive word. And I thought, well, this is me living my life again, the way I want to live it. And it has so many different meanings as well, because to live again, it refers to the fabrics that we use and the components that we use because they are recycled, so they are reusable. Um, so Revive means so many different things to me, and it came together very nicely at a time where I think I was doing the most soul searching that
Mm.
I've ever done. I don't know if that's a cliche term, soul searching, but it was for me. I was looking inwards so much.
Yeah.
And
I can
then, yeah,
imagine it being kind of a double whammy because a lot of us were like that during lockdown anyway, especially
yeah.
the first one anyway,
Oh,
because it was like a
definitely.
new thing. But also, there's also like being that transition from maiden to mother. It's
Yeah,
like you're kind of, as your baby's born. I don't have a baby, but so I hear you're kind of like reborn yourself as a mother. Did you really feel that way, or?
absolutely. With my first child, absolutely. With my second child, not so much because I was having to go
Mm.
back to work and didn't have much time
Yeah.
looking after a baby and a toddler. But with Sienna, I definitely had this time to think, okay, who do I want to be for her? What mother do I want to be for her? What sort of example do I want to set? And it's that living the life that you want to live mindset that really came through quite strongly. And so this was 2021 now by the time I launched the brand. And it's grown ever since. And it's been a really wonderful journey with ups and downs. I can't tell you the amount of
Oh yeah.
downs
I
that
can,
I've
well, I've lived it myself. I know the kind of downs you're talking about. But that's amazing though. You launched like kind of quickly when with anything fashion, things can take a long time, especially if maybe you don't know fully how to the whole process of how something within fashion goes from design to production. And this is something that I know a lot of people really struggle with. So I get so many people who want to start fashion brands come to me, and they're like, how the hell do I even do this? How did you have some idea of how to do that, or did you just go on a massive Google hole?
It's it's a minefield. For someone who's wanting to start a brand from scratch organically, it's very much searching the internet for what to do. Luckily for me, so I found a sustainable factory and a sort of production company based in London, and I contacted them and I said, "This is what I want to do. Can you make my dream come true?" And they said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, slow down. You are nowhere near where you need to be. We recommend that you invest in a mentor." And they gave me the name of someone called Emmeline, and she at the time she's been in the business for maybe 25 years or so. She's so knowledgeable. And at the time she was launching this 1 year mentorship. And I thought, this is absolutely brilliant. And it was like there was some alignment at that time of my
Mm.
life. It was, I don't know, the universe speaking to me or whatnot, but there was a sense of magic to it. So I did sign on with a mentor for 12 months. And during that mentorship, it was like a course for setting up your own sustainable brand in swimwear, lingerie, or activewear. And there were other people on the course with me, and many of them have been very successful in with their vision, and where we're all very connected still. We have this community where we cheer each other on. And if I'm not showing up in my business, they give me gentle reminders. They're like, "Oh, you've got wonderful, pretty pictures. We want to see you. You need to be at the forefront of your brand." Um, so that course was 12 months, and that's essentially from design and idea creation stage all the way through to fabric sourcing, factory finding, productions, working with tech packs, understanding the different jargon of the industry as well. For someone who I didn't go to fashion school, I didn't know anything about it, so that took time. That took time to understand it, and it also took time for me to understand that you can't rush these things. You
Mm.
can't, like, you think that you can launch in 5 months. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. You need to set time aside for sampling and fitting and making sure that it's right
Mm.
before you launch. And there's so many hiccups that happen along the way, from in shipping disasters, things getting lost in the post, or a factory can't slot you in where they said that they would, or a fabric that you've ordered is now out of stock. So
Yeah.
lots of setbacks. So it was for me understanding, or bringing on a different frame of mind that, okay, this will launch when it's ready. And I probably did rush it a bit in the end, because in hindsight, I've made mistakes that I wouldn't make with my second collection. But
Mm.
I think that's part of the learning experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I did go to fashion school and I'd planned to own a fashion business my whole life. And then when I did it was still like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, they don't make it easy.
They don't know, it definitely doesn't. Like now I think it's slightly easier because there are like more factories that might do shorter runs for new businesses, but it used to be that trying to find a factory to make less than hundreds or thousands of a unit
I know.
was
Yeah,
pretty impossible.
yeah,
Did you end
exactly.
up going to the same factory that you spoke to first, or
I didn't.
no?
No, and that's the beauty of it, is that you end up finding other avenues to explore, and they might be better for you. And that goes with everything. That's from photographers to factories to fabric providers, and that's I think that part of the beauty of the journey is you're constantly evolving your brand, but you're constantly evolving your supply chain.
Yeah.
And I do not have my supply chain perfect yet, but there are people that I've met who I will go back to time and time again because they show up for me. They're consistent. I love the quality, and I feel like I'm a part of their community as much as I feel like they're a part of mine.
Yeah. It's very easy. to kind of feel like you're a needle in a haystack sometimes, like your little brand is there with like thousands of other brands and people are trying to fit you in. So it's really special when you find a factory, or even if like those listening are not, haven't got a supply chain, even if you find people that are helping you somehow, that really make you feel seen and like they're part of your team, even though they're not like working under the name of your brand name, that you feel like a team. Is a real what's the word? It's a really powerful thing to have, because starting your own brand or even just putting your own artwork out there or trying to carve your own path in life can feel like the loneliest road in
It
the actual
is.
world.
It is. Being a founder is lonely. And I'm very
Mm,
fortunate that I had this group of like-minded
mm,
women who wanted to do similar things. Because doing it alone, I probably would have given up, I think, by now, if I didn't have that support. And so to give you a bit more background, we launched officially in July of 2022, and had a really good start to launching the business. Then I fell pregnant with my second child, and he was born in January of 2023. That took, that wiped me. Like, I had no energy trying to, I mean, I was on maternity leave from my 9 to 5, obviously very grateful for that.
mm,
But trying to keep Revive afloat whilst I was on maternity, I probably had some postpartum depression as well. And it honestly just fell by the wayside a little bit. I had set it up to be fairly self-sustainable and self-sufficient so that it could just work in the background and orders could come in. I could automate a lot of the marketing. Orders would come in. I was doing the fulfillment. I still am. And it was steady, but fast forward to 2024, the momentum hadn't picked up because I don't think I had found or regained my energy at the beginning of 2024.
mm.
And then I experienced some personal loss in 2024 as well. My mum sadly passed away. And again, that floored me. And I'm only now starting to revive myself and the
Mm.
business. And I do have a lot of energy now, and I'm very focused on the business, and I'm super excited about it. Like, my heart's in it again. I'm creating pieces, creating new collections, building my audience and my tribe. But it's not been an easy road, and I think that that's part of the struggle. Part of the beauty of the struggle is that it's yours and it's your journey to walk. Um, but I think that just circles back to why it's so important to have that community and that support network. And whether that community is your following, your audience, or whether it's people within the industry who are, again, cheering you on, it's vital.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Like whatever path you're doing, whatever you're creating, whatever you're trying to put out into the world, having people doing the same thing or similar thing to you that are on the same path, maybe at the same point, or even if they're further along the path than you, that kind of expand your vision of what is possible, is really priceless,
Mm,
because people around you, like family and friends and things that will love you and support you, are also priceless, but they never really fully know what's going on in your head.
exactly.
So I always, like when I had my business, I didn't have a mentor. I
Mm-hmm.
went to like one mastermind that was in Wales that was incredible. It was called Makers and Mavericks. That's not where the name of this podcast came from. But it was run by a guy called David Hyatt, who owns a company called Hyatt Denim, Hyatt Jeans. And that was really great, because then after that we had a community of people, at a WhatsApp group that were like pep each other on. But I didn't really have a mentor. And it was only after I closed the business, which is funny because I closed the business during COVID when you were opening yours, that I really discovered the power of having a mentor. And then I
Mm.
now I'm like, if I could go back again, that is the first thing I would do, is hire a mentor and find a community. The very first thing I would do, even like before I started designing anything. And that's kind of what you did, which is awesome.
But it's taken me a while to understand that. I
Yeah.
felt alone for a lot of it, and I haven't lent on my community. Whereas if I could go back again, I would have been leaning on them left, right, and center.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a balancing act, and we are only human, and the majority of female founders or male founders, they have other things going on in their life, and they can't necessarily pour 100% of them into their business. So you do need people to pick up slack. And it's not necessarily people who are directly involved in your business, but it is people who are your champions essentially for you. They're advocating for you, and they're celebrating you as well. And there's an energy attached to that. I know that when I post the most gorgeous picture of our swimwear on a beach, it's just idyllic. That post will not get nowhere near the engagement that when I show up in the business. And that's quite electric.
Mm.
And that is the type of energy which has that momentum in it. It makes you want to do more. So it is a win-win to show up and to use your community and to lean on them. But yeah, it's there's so many moving pieces as well to consider when you're a brand owner.
Mm.
You're working on operations, but you're also the marketer, and you're
Mm.
also the head supply chain. You're the sales director. You're the creative director. You're
Mm.
thinking about your profit. You're thinking about your losses. If you get a return, I remember when I got my first return, it was I think I cried. I think I cried to my husband. I was like, why does someone not love this? Why are they returning it? Um, but now I think that returns are healthy, and I think that it's good to move away from the mindset that, I am not my swimwear pieces. If someone is returning a piece of swimwear, it means it doesn't flatter them in the way that they want it to. It's not actually a reflection on me and the work that I'm doing. And that's been a bit of a hurdle to get over. And I
Yeah,
think
that's a
that
really important like mindset reframe though. I find with a lot of creatives, when you're creating something from nothing, then when someone, or even when in the moment you're putting it out into the world, half of the vulnerability that we feel in that moment is because we think that people liking it or not is a direct reflection upon us or who we are as a person or our talent as a creator. Whereas it doesn't, you know? So especially when it's products like clothing, because I think people are really used to buying off of, H&M or Zara, just trying it on and then sending it back, or ASOS, just buying a bunch of stuff from ASOS, trying it on and sending it back. So yeah, you never really fully know what
no,
is
you
in that
don't.
moment.
You don't. There are so many limiting beliefs that we have naturally ingrained in us. And I think that the struggle to overcome our limiting beliefs is ongoing. I think that I'll be 85 and I'll probably still doubt myself. Again, it's all part of the journey. And I don't think I aligned well with my why or the business's why in the first couple of years, because I think subconsciously I felt like I know that there's a problem. I'm very passionate about the problem of mass production
Mm.
over consumerism, fast fashion. It's wasteful, it's harmful, and I just don't think that we're teaching our kids the right way to live. And I think subconsciously I had it in my mind that I was adding to that by creating products.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a little while to work out that actually, no, it's not about the products that we're creating. It's about the movement. It's about the slow movement. It's about bringing a sense of value back to the things that we own. And I'm not from a generation where I use sewing machines, but I'm probably going to buy one in the next couple of years. Like, I love to see people fixing things themselves. And if you go back 50, 60, 70 years, everyone had a sewing machine. Most people had a sewing machine in their house. They were not only making their own clothes, but they were fixing them. They were mending them, and they really valued what they owned.
Mm.
And that is what I'm trying to bring with Revive. It's quality garments that make you feel good, but they're timeless, but they're also supposed to or made to last as well. And I think in the future, we'll see a lot more brands starting to offer mend and repair services. I understand it can be somewhat challenging with intimates, whether it's swimwear or lingerie.
Yeah.
There's lots of different pieces and they're quite personal as well. But there's some good movement coming with that. And I remember when I first launched, I had this idea. I even had these cards created that said, when you're finished loving your Revivre, send it back to us and we'll recycle the components. We'll send the fabrics back to be recycled and returned into new fabrics. And in turn, you'll get a credit to use with us again. And it was this wonderful circular idea.
Yeah.
I feel like I've not had a swimsuit sent back to us yet after someone has
No.
loved it, because maybe we're not there yet. Maybe the idea is good, but we're not there yet. And I don't know many factories that are actively taking back used fabric. But it's good to have these ideas, and it's good to talk to other people about what's possible within the industry and how we can collaborate on things moving forward. Um,
Yeah, I
strength
mean,
by numbers.
also, when some things that are meant to last, that means you could have it, someone could have it for 5 years
Yeah.
and still be
Yep.
loving it. I have swimwear. I'm a bit of a swimwear fiend, which is probably a good reason that I moved to Barcelona. I now have an excuse to wear it. I didn't wear it a lot in London, but um, yeah, I love swimwear, and I have some swimwear that I've had for 10 years
Yeah.
as a agent provocateur bikini that I've had for
Yep.
12, like 10, 11 years. And
Yep.
I still wear it. So it could
It's
be
well
some time.
structured. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't fade when you wash it. It doesn't lose its shape.
No.
And it makes you feel good when you wear
Mm.
it. You know it's going to be flattering for you. It's going to be empowering. That's what Revive
Yeah.
is. That's our biggest mission, is to create swimwear that and resort wear eventually, but that is built to last, and you're supposed to hold on to it for a while and value it.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that there'll be a big movement towards more biodegradable fabrics in the future as
Hmm.
well, finding the balance of keeping long lasting swimwear like your swimwear that you've kept for a long time, 10 years, compared to something that's created to disintegrate in 10 years as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more scientific development which is coming with that, which we should see some good progress with in the next few years.
Yeah, for sure. What is your route to discovering new fabrics or finding new technologies like that?
Uh, Again, it's a minefield. My best advice for myself and also anyone that's looking to start their own sustainable fashion brand is to attend the exhibitions. So there's one in Paris called Interfiliere that happens twice a year. You know about that.
Been many
Um,
times.
yeah, that's great because the top floor is sourcing, so it's fabrics, it's components. You get to meet the suppliers that are using innovative technology as well, whether it's biodegradable, people using castor oils in fabric now, or whether it's Reprieve, Econol, those types of
Mm,
sustainable fabric, sorry. And then underneath the lower floor is brands, young and more mature brands who are still trying to promote their product using these new technologies. So they're one step ahead. So it's a really nice combination of this is where you can start, this is what's available for you,
mm,
and this is what people are doing with that.
mm.
Um, Fabrics has been a bit of a bugbear for me because being a young brand, you don't have the backing or the money to be able to go to a fabric factory to create your own bespoke fabric, which is the end goal
Yeah.
for me. Something that you know has the certifications behind it, but you can also bring your artistic creation in and
Mm,
have it exactly as you want it. So younger brands are somewhat limited in terms of where they can go. Often the color um, charts are quite strict. You can only order from what they have. And printing, if you're going to print fabric, it's quite expensive. If you're talking about minimum order quantities, I've, it's rare to come across a provider that doesn't work with quite high minimum order quantities. But I have met providers recently who have low MIQs, which is great. So I'm starting to pursue that in a bit more detail. Um, One thing that I have noticed though is that when brands are creating their collections, it's very secretive because I understand the reason behind it is because they want to create this sense of this is ours, we made it, it's exclusive.
Mm.
So there's not necessarily that sharing of information in the industry of this is where I source this fabric from. Brands are becoming much more transparent when it comes to the factories that they're using, and there's a huge movement towards European factories, which is great because it really does reduce the carbon footprint when you produce your collections in the East. But I do find that when it comes to fabric sourcing, there is that exclusive secrecy. And a lot of brands often pretend that the fabrics that they're creating their pieces from are their own and they're only for that brand, but it's not necessarily the case. If you went to one of these huge exhibitions, you'd find that fabric and you'd probably find that it comes in 50 colors.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the keeping your factories a secret is this sort of old wives' tale of the fashion industry. I think it's something that maybe we did pre-internet or something that now it's just a narrative that people carry through because
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see the point myself. I mean, just like just because you're making something, even if someone copies your factory, doesn't mean they're copying your design. I mean, sometimes, but that's the thing. Also, something that does happen, especially in some factories in the East, is that they create. Often happens with for high designer clothes or bags that they create the clothes and then they also create fakes of the same thing to
Yeah,
sell. But
yeah,
even then, you can't control that. But that's also telling someone your factory is not going to change that because the factory are
no,
doing it themselves.
yeah.
So, again, I think finding smaller, like family feel factories where you really trust the people and you get a really good vibe and know how they're treating the people that are making the clothes and things.
That's it. Yeah.
That's how
Being
we get
able to
around.
visit your factories, I think, is really important. So we
Yeah.
used a great factory called MLT, and they're based in Porto, in
Mm.
Portugal. And I took a friend with me. We went for a girls' weekend, but we went to visit the factory in Porto, and it was so lovely because when you first enter the industry, you have these doubts in your mind about factories. I think we grew up with the word sweatshops and things like that,
Mm.
um, or unethical trade, and yeah, it was incredible. It was, they were showing us certifications. I could see the staff were happy. I could see that they were very well looked after. They were very much above minimum wage. This was a career for them.
Mm.
And we took a lot of photos and we asked them if we could post them online, and we did a big piece on our factory, showing, like the who made my clothes
Mm.
hashtag and a bit of a background on the factory and the fact that they're family run, they've been around for a long time, but the quality is is next to none. And I do find that with Portuguese factories is the quality is
Yeah.
fantastic. You do pay a little bit more for the production, but I'd rather I'd rather create those really like well made pieces than take risks and cut corners.
Yeah, Portugal or Porto specifically is really like world renowned for especially stretch fabrics like swimwear, activewear, things like that. They're really and jerseys, they're really good at that kind of side of thing, the industry. So yeah, you can definitely find really amazing factories, but it is a bit of a wormhole.
It
Kind of
is,
like
yeah.
keep going, sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that Portugal is quite known for having quite high minimum order quantities. Like the first factory that we went to was 1,000 pieces, and that's great if you've got the cash flow. But what you don't want to be is stock heavy, and we
Yeah.
entered that. We entered that as well, where we didn't have a lot of cash coming in, and but we had a hell of a lot of stock.
Yeah.
And but now I am starting to find a lot more Portuguese factories and European factories in general that start offering much lower quantities. So it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I think especially for the sustainable fashion movement, community designers group, a lot of people are starting sustainable fashion businesses that are really small to
Yes,
begin with. So,
exactly. Yeah.
so I think it's also a good business idea for factories to cater to those people, because so many
Yeah.
people want to start a business, whether they last 10 years or whether they last 5, 2, 1.
Exactly. Or whether they bring out a collection every quarter or once a year or once every 2 years. Like that's
Yeah.
the whole point is that it should be slow and maybe we shouldn't be so quick to want to always release new collections because we do approach that danger zone of dead stock. And that's
Yeah.
something that, it's a huge problem in the world. And I don't think that we really completely appreciate how much waste there is when it comes to fabrics and materials.
Oh, it's mental. I mean, people think about clothing waste just as like people who wear something from Primark once and throw it away, but actually in the making of clothes, there's a lot of waste too. Are they laying out the pieces of the pattern in a really efficient way to use as much fabric as little fabric as possible? I mean, and have like less offcuts. Are you using your offcuts to make something else? Are you being really creative with the amount of waste that even you make in production? It's like
Mhm.
it's a whole big thing.
Yeah, it's challenging, but I think the more of the smaller independent brands that we have coming together, it's it's just going to be beneficial for everyone. Um, I think the key is that younger brand owners need to feel that they're part of something and that they're not
Yeah.
doing it alone. And again, there's that sense of community. There are a lot of initiatives and sort of groups and collaborations where, like, I've heard of a group, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's a circular movement and they invite founders in. And it's about coming together to try and combat this sort of the bigger issues by collaborating on their sourcing. So, for example, if you've got, say maybe there's 1,000 brands that are part of this collective, but you've got, two or three of them that are wanting to buy that fabric, they can buy that fabric and they can all use a little bit. So they're avoiding those higher order
Mm.
quantities, but they're also ensuring that they're doing good work with it. So they're promoting sustainability, they're moving people away from going down to Primark and buying something that it's not going to
Yeah.
last. They're not going
Yeah.
to feel good in it. It's not going to be made of quality. And like I met someone a while ago, and she said something about ordering. She had an event coming up, and she said she was ordering, I don't know, 10 dresses from ASOS, and then she would get them at home, try them on, and then send back the 8 or 9 that she didn't want. And I thought at the time, I didn't think anything of it. And I was like, yeah, cool, 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 because ASOS will just resell them. And then I read somewhere that they don't resell them. And there's this like huge dead stock situation where larger companies don't resell the returned stock.
No.
So it's changing the mindset of people, and we need more young fashion owners who are leading from the front and advocating for sustainable business, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going back to what you said about having that moment of doubt whether you were adding to the problem or whether you were
Yeah.
taking away from the problem. I remember going through the exact same thing. And it was after I went to this big sustainable fashion like summit. And there were
Mm.
loads of really like big names within the movement that were talking on stage, people like Mara Hoffman and things like that. Um, and I remember just sitting there thinking, like, don't we all just need like I remember Mara Hoffman actually saying we need an entire human consciousness upgrade to
Yeah.
like get over this problem. And there was I, like young founder who's also a meditation and yoga teacher, and I was like, am I better use doing that to like
Yeah.
elevate the consciousness of human beings, or am I, what am I doing here? And then I had to really sit with myself about that. And then I thought, actually, what changes people's minds about things is brands.
Mm.
brands change people's minds. Brands kind of create leadership within something, and then maybe what you are really supposed to do is change through this kind of channel at the moment.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree. And there's so much magic in that. And people, I think people want to follow. I think people want to be led in the right direction. Sometimes through convenience, we often take an easier choice. That's why younger brands and more established brands need to just keep shouting and keep doing what they're doing, because the more visible we are, the more that we show up, the more that we have that engaging content, the more that people are going to follow us. And we need to move away from this mindset that the more that we have means we have more value in our life. And I
Mm.
see a lot of people who are decluttering and getting rid of, either giving to charity or selling a lot of their things. And I'm so for that. I don't need 10 cheaply made sweaters. I need one or two quality ones that make me feel good, that make me feel comfortable, that keep me warm, and that I know are going to last.
Mm.
So I took on a challenge for myself to not buy anything in 2025 in terms of new clothing. I've extended it to secondhand clothing as well because I love vintage. So I needed to have a little break from vintage because I'll get lost, I'll go down the rabbit hole and I end up buying something that I don't need. Like, for example, this beautiful, colourful, thick
Oh
cardigan
wow,
I bought
very nice.
recently, and it was from Vinted, and I mean, it was probably £50, reduced from maybe 150, but I didn't need it in my life. I will cherish it now, but I had to put a bit of a stop or a hold on my purchases. But this year, I'm planning on decluttering and getting rid of anything that no longer serves me.
Mm.
And that's clothing. That it can be extended to a lot of different areas of your life. Food consumption, television shows, that type of thing. I'm trying to be very conscious about it. It's difficult
Yeah.
because after the kids are in bed, all I want to do is plump myself down on the couch and put Netflix on. And sometimes I do because I'm a big believer in balance.
Yeah.
But I think being more conscious and living more consciously is key, and letting people know about what you're doing, because they want to be led and they want to try and do the same thing, but they need it to be easy for them. And if we show them the right way and show them how easy it is and show them how beautiful the journey can be, then I think we're on to something good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to create a brand, or even if it's you're not creating a brand, listeners, if you're more going out for a personal brand, you're still leading. And I think creatives really struggle with the idea that we are leaders, we're visionaries in the world. And unfortunately that means you are a leader. A lot of us don't really resonate with that word, maybe, or that title, because we tend to be quite introverted. But embodying your beliefs is all that leadership really is. And when you kind of had that realization that maybe a brand could create change, and you are leading a charge with your brand, did you have that kind of dance with the identity of being that, or was it okay because you were behind a brand name?
It's such a challenge for me, such a challenge. To be able to show up in my business is really difficult for me to do. I like circling back to those limiting beliefs, and does the world want to hear from me,
Mm.
as being something that I will have to work at for as long as the business is alive. And it's very empowering, because when you do take that leap of faith, my mom used to have this really beautiful saying of feel the fear and do it anyway. And
Mm.
I will often do that. Like this podcast, for example, I'm out of my comfort zone doing it.
Mm.
Am I enjoying it? 100%. I love it. I love where it's going to go. I love telling my friends, my family about it and shouting about it. But it's definitely taking a bit of a leap of faith or taking a chance on yourself and trusting that people want to hear from you. And you've got something good to share with the world. And that struggle of that identity crisis and who am I? Am I showing up as my true authentic self? Or am I hiding behind the version of me that I think the world wants to see?
Mm.
That's probably been a big struggle for me. The world wants to see me. The world wants to see me vulnerable because I am vulnerable. I'm a business owner. I'm a human. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I am a lover of life. And I'm very, I mean, as silly as it sounds, I'm excited to be alive.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that the people don't, I like, the world doesn't want to see that. Sometimes I think that the world wants to see a refined human, someone who is completely collected and on top of everything in their life and doesn't have any struggles. And I know now that that's not the case. And there's beauty in vulnerability. And that's where the magic is for my community to see me, the real version of me, but also for me, because that's what's going to empower me to keep going and to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big there's vulnerability in putting yourself out there, and then there is this constant dance in your head of like, am I being authentic or am I trying to show the shiny version of everything? Am I, then there's I some people go a little bit too far with being a bit vulnerable, you know?
Do. Yeah, it's a balancing act, like you say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
your tribe will find you, and they'll find the perfect mix of you if you continuously show up as your authentic self. It doesn't mean your authentic self might want to limit how much you're putting forward, and that is your authentic self. I do see some influencers, and they are very much putting themselves out there, their lives, their vulnerabilities. I see some people who are completely polished, um,
Mm.
and that probably works for them. But for me, it's that balancing act in the middle. It's finding that middle ground, and I don't think it's something that you just overcome one day.
Oh
I
no,
think
it's definitely a big journey. And I think also within fashion businesses, for a long time, this is not what you did. You were
mhm,
supposed to be a mystery. You were supposed to kind of present a very polished version of the business. I've spoken about this on the podcast before.
mhm.
But like when we were starting a label, you're supposed to kind of already even be answering emails as if you had a whole team behind you. We are doing this, we are doing that. Da, 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 da. Let me just ask my assistant, blah blah blah. But when
Yeah,
actually it's just you with a pile of
it's
stock
just
and crap
you.
and like an absolute mess in your bedroom or in your living
Yeah,
room or something.
yeah,
Whereas now people really want to see the mess,
yes,
really
yes.
want to see they're like, oh no, it's actually me with their job, with two kids,
I
like
mean,
doing
this
everything.
is like my son's milk bottle from last night. I moved it out of the screen so that I look a little bit more polished. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
I'm in his bedroom. There's a cot next to me, but he is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think there's beauty in showing up, but you can still show up in a beautiful way. It doesn't have to be messy.
No.
You can still show up in a way that you want the world to see it, but understand that the world wants to see your struggles and they want to see that you're human. At the end of the day, they want to see you human because it's going to resonate with them. So if they are thinking about doing something similar, they will.
Mm.
They'll feel empowered to do it because they're like, okay, well, if that woman is normal, she's got the struggles of daily life, as do I. So I can do this too. I can fulfill my dream if that's what they want to do.
Yeah, completely. Oh, I love that. That's such a really nice message to end on. I think that anyone that maybe is struggling with that idea of showing up, I think it's a nice message to put out there. Because I think often we think if we're showing up, it is just all about us. But I think getting over that hump is to see it as for them, showing up for
Yeah.
them, for your community, for people that might be inspired by your story, or for people that want to buy into your vision and in buying into your brand. You're showing up for them. It's like you're not really, I think if we were all doing it for ourselves, we'd all get bored and just want
Yeah.
to just throw social media out the window, probably.
No, exactly. And someone, actually, it was my mentor who said recently, community first, product second. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. It's all about
Yeah,
the community. The brand is the community.
totally. Yeah, love that. Well, Sara, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. Just for everyone listening, I'll put obviously links and everything in the show notes, but is there anywhere the best place people can find you and your lovely swimwear?
Yes, so website is revive.co.uk. We're on Instagram and Pinterest as well, so it's at revive_swim. Please come and follow us. Please let us know what you think and engage with me. I'm very much in the business, so if you drop me a message, I will probably respond within about 5 minutes because I'm quite reactive like that. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed myself today. Enjoy the weather in Barcelona. It's got to
Yeah.
be nicer than it is in Scotland at the moment.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
cold,
still
yeah.
raining, but it's not that cold.
But yeah, no, it's been lots of fun, and yeah, let's keep in touch as well.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it, and if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.